Home is where connections are made, memories are formed, and ideas are born. And no one knows home better than NFM. Thanks for tuning in to I Am Home, the podcast that goes deeper than trends and dives into what it means to make your house a home.
Hello, you're listening to I Am Home, the Home Life Best Life podcast. I'm Tyler Weiskup. We don't have Hillary today, but I am joined by my co-host whose sixth sense is curiosity and her seventh sense is charm. It's Becca Sudbeck.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Becca. This month, our theme is That's Scary. And today's topic is going to be a phantom-filled, hair-raising episode. We're talking about what to do when you have a ghost in the house with some real-life ghost hunters. I'm so excited to get to them. But before we do, let me tell you why we're even doing this podcast. And that's because NFM is more than just your everything home store. We're in the business of improving lifestyles because your home life should be your best life. And you can learn more at nfm.com. And let's move on to our whole crew. We've got a full house here of ghost hunters. We've got Chris Case, we've got Marcia Wallace, we've got Paul Kocsis, and Doreen Demoraes.
Correct.
Welcome to you all.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yes,
thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me introduce you here quick, and hopefully people can connect you with your voices. Chris, first got to know, honestly, this whole crew from a ghost hunting class that I took, which you guys just blew all of our minds with. The whole course was amazing. But Chris, you were kind of the head guy for the class. You're a paranormal investigator and a filmmaker.
Yep.
You have years and years of experience in both fields. I know that there's some films that people might have watched if they're into ghost hunting that you've been a part of.
Yeah, we had a Brush with Evil series, a Brush with Evil 3. Paul and I were both on that project. That is on Amazon Prime, I believe. And then I have a couple other that were at a film festival. They weren't paranormal related, but some other stuff, and was on Haunted in the Heartland on the Travel Channel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, these are things that people have certainly heard of, especially if you're into ghost hunting, which I think if you're listening, you probably are. So, Paul, I know you as mainly kind of, I think they refer to you as the wizard.
Yeah,
and I don't know where this is coming from.
It didn't come from
Other,
me, I'll tell you that.
But mainly around because you're like the tech guy. You're the guy who kind of builds the tools that a lot of the folks here are using to do their investigations.
Right.
Like try to pull sound clips of paranormal activity.
Right.
And you've got some different things that you typically do, and we'll probably talk about a few of them once we get into it. Yeah. So, Paul, thanks for being here.
You bet.
And then we've got our damn paranormal investigation team, and that's a acronym for everyone that's in the group.
Everyone that started the group,
Started the group, absolutely. And Doreen and Marcia are here with us as a part of the group. Marcia Wallace, I remember you like being kind of the medium of the group. You're just like a little bit more in tune with like actually seeing and hearing things.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doreen, your investigation skills, like, I mean, you just have had a long experience with this. I know
Correct.
It started many, many years ago when you had a haunting in your own home and you started getting into this stuff.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. And a couple of homes that my kids lived in as well. And very interesting. And kind of circle back to Paul, the wizard. Equipment has come so far in the 15 years that we've been doing this. And I think with that, we've been able to help several families and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So collected, we have probably a couple decades of experience in investigations and just experience with the paranormal. And this is the perfect crew to help us answer the question of what to do when you have a ghost in the house. And I wonder if we can start with some level setting. What are some of like the most common misconceptions about ghost hunting? And I wonder if we can start with Marcia or Doreen.
The most ones I find is that if something bad happens in your home, people think it's a demon automatically. But that's not true. In all of our years of doing this, I think we might have ran into two. But there's some pretty evil human spirits out there as well.
So not everything that is like related to a ghost or a spirit or some sort of haunting is out to do bad things to you. Is that
Correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. And Becca, I saw you shudder a little bit when they mentioned their experience with demons. Do you want to like follow up on that as
I don't know. Do I? I'm easily scared. So, I mean, can you guys tell us about the one or two demons you've run across?
The one that sticks out mainly for me was one that was in, we did a house in the country. And one of my teammates was feeling kind of creeped out by a room. So I went in there to check it out because I'm the one that sees everything. And when I went in there, I couldn't see or even feel anything in there. So, and they're really good about hiding their energies.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood in this dark room asking it to show itself. And at the time, I didn't know there was a mirror in front of me. And I seen this probably 7-foot thing appear in front of me, which I thought it was in front of me. And the eyes were kind of yellow and slit sideways. And his face was kind of blue. So it was like, there was like a light shining on it, but not in our realm, there wasn't. And he took a step towards me. So I turned to run out of the room because I was scared. And to come find out he was behind me. So I almost ran right into him.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. But out of how many investigations that you've done, you've had 2 experiences that have been maybe at that level.
15 years, we've done hundreds, if not thousands of investigations.
Yeah. So just for level setting purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, these
It's not
evil,
common.
Yes.
It's it's really not common to have a demon.
Yeah.
But certainly
haunting.
a scary experience.
Yes.
Okay. So for anyone maybe new to the topic, like how do you define a haunting? Like what does that term mean for this group?
I mean, I think it depends on how you think about it, like what you think a haunting is, like we all have different experiences, even though we've done stuff together, like we've been at the same places, but her experience for a haunting is different than my experience. I think it's kind of just how you think. If something's off, it's not right, then, look into what is causing this not to be right, I think one of the biggest things we do too is debunk stuff, because that's super important. Like, I personally went to a house, it wasn't far from here, and got called in, and this girl was in a panic and was like, there's stuff moving at night, there's all this stuff. I get in the house and it's just full of trash, like hoarder, and there's 10 cats. Well, yeah, of course you hear noise at night, you know what I mean? So that's not a haunting. Like, I think it's just how we all are experienced with it and what we take and what is a haunting, it's kind of hard,
Yeah.
I have a question. So if you're talking about like a haunting, is it just like an encounter with a spirit or something? Because I feel like that has like a negative, like scary thing, but I don't necessarily think that all encounters with paranormal things are like bad or scary. But is that what you're considering a haunting?
Yeah, like last night, for example, I had knocks on my door, like my bedroom door. My fiance's like freaking out, like hardcore, and I'm just like, I'm just going to bed. Like this is like, this has been the 4th time in probably 3 months this has happened, and it's just like, to me, it's whatever at this point. Like, to me, that is a haunting, because I open the door and there's nothing out there. I go and ask my son, were you knocking on my door? And he's passed out, like he's out cold. So something caused that knocking on the door,
Yeah, I know. Looking at your guys' website, the Damn Paranormal website, like some definitions for haunting, a little bit there. There's the words are escaping me right now, but something around the effect of like there's classifications of like the spirits that you're typically seeing. One that is a little bit more interactive, and one that's maybe like residual, something that's like repeating
It's like
a pattern.
There's an intelligent haunting, and then there's residual haunting.
Gotcha.
With residuals, they don't even know you're there. They just do their same thing every time that they go through. That it's not like we might be able to see them, but they don't. They see it as whatever in their time.
Right.
And intelligent ones are obvious ones that like to interact with us.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think kind of the way that you framed it when we were under your guys' class a little bit was the like it's a lot about energy.
Mhm.
And like an energy can just be there in that space, or it can, how would you describe it if it's a little bit more intelligent? Like what do you think is happening with that energy and being kind of still within existence to some degree?
For me, like in my house, I have I call him the hallway ghost, and he's always there. He peeks his head in my doorway at night. I've seen him come out of the bathroom. Would I call it a haunting? No, he's just there. I think he's maybe more of a spirit guide,
Yeah.
but a kind one at that. He doesn't scare anybody. So I really wouldn't call it a haunting, though. I would just call it more, like you said, an energy.
Yeah.
And I've personally, for me, when I'm sick, he becomes a little bit more active, poking his head in the door a little bit more. So,
Like checking on you?
yeah, like
Okay.
checking on me.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's a relative or just a random something that checked. Did it come with the house? I don't know. I mean, nothing bad has ever happened in the house. I'm not scared in the house at all. It's kind of comforting to know that, he'll peek in on me every now and again. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, I wonder if we could talk a little bit about like when people are experiencing things. Chris, you were mentioning like debunking and trying to kind of get to the bottom of what's happening. What are some of the most common maybe rationales for what people are experiencing?
You take that. He does a lot of the audio review and tech guy. So yeah, go for it.
Well, one thing I think that we always want to debunk, are there critters in the walls? Are there critters in the ceilings? Anything that is explainable, we want to make sure that it's not something in our physical world that's causing people to think that there's unexplained noises. But when we get past all that and we have no other answers, then I think we have to start turning to, well, maybe there is something going on here. I think when things become disruptive for people finding cabinet doors open, faucets turning on, and maybe there's some plumbers that might say, well, faucets can turn on, and maybe that's the case. But that's part of, I think, our job to determine whether there are, real world causes for this that are not paranormal.
Yeah, kind of going through your paces of checking. You talked about during the class like some sound pollution. Like there's,
Right.
That's why a lot of these like we see these shows happening at night, not just because like it's spookier and like that's a cooler time to maybe put on a TV program, but because that's less activity of the world,
Right.
maybe like creating some of this noise. And most of the time we hear some of these things because they're like there's less stuff going on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I feel like.
yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah, hauntings can happen at any time.
right.
But for me personally, who's trying to capture evidence of it, I really like doing it at night because the outside daytime noise pollution is at least at a minimum.
Yeah.
So,
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think some of the other environmental factors that I've heard about, like maybe you've got mold, or you've got gas leaks, things like that can help affect it. Or maybe you took maybe you had too many drinks that night. Like there's things that can help it infect a little bit of what maybe you're interpreting.
Certainly, and there's been studies done that high levels of EMF or electromagnetic radiation or frequencies can affect the brain and make you think you're hearing stuff when it may not really
Right.
be there. Or actually, I even think it's kind of heighten the fear factor that can't be explainable. So, and especially in this day and age where there's so many sources of electromagnetic pollution, that is something we have to be cognizant of.
100%. Yeah. And that's what a lot of, if you've watched the show or you have ever had the pleasure of talking to a ghost hunting crew, like the electromagnetic readers that you're using, helping to kind of like determine where where you're seeing some of this is happening, and trying to determine if that's something that you can explain or not explain.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, one place that I like using those is a place like, well, few and far between, but a place like Villisca, where the house is not even wired, so there's no electricity running around that house. So I would give, for me personally, that a little more credence than if I'm in a modern home with monitors and computers and all kinds of things around.
Yeah, got a lot of tech and gizmos that are just shooting off all sorts of energy.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that helps
Right.
kind of make it difficult.
Right, it does make it difficult. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about if somebody maybe they're trying to debunk a few things. They've listened to this sort of list that we've kind of put together, and they're still thinking that they might have something. How do you suggest that they confirm or rule that out if they're going through this list, or if they're starting to do maybe their own home investigation? What kind of tools or techniques or suggestions might you have for a homeowner who's experiencing something to start?
Well, I would think, depending upon when it's happening, you get yourself, and they're not that expensive in this day and age to get a really a nice little recorder that has a low noise floor. They're not that expensive, but for instance, if there's something you think is occurring during the night, start it, put the microphone on its highest, set it away from you, and let it run all night. That can be, you've got to realize that there still are noises. You may toss and turn when you don't know you do. But if you're getting whispers and voices, well, that could be an indication maybe there is something going on. But I think the low-hanging fruit of evidence is audio to me. So I wouldn't mind telling somebody to start there if they wanted to try to do their own investigating.
Yeah. If they think that, like you said, drawers are opening, faucets are turning on, maybe isolate the area and set a microphone there and see what you can capture. Maybe there's somebody calling out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good place to start. Any other advice
100%.
or suggestions?
Use your instincts too, I guess. Like, to me, I have always said, if you feel like something's watching you at night, something's probably watching you. That's your body going in defense mode, and your instincts, your senses is saying, why are you going into defense mode? Why is your body going into goosebumps or all this stuff? Like, your body is such a great tool to use too.
It's probably reacting to something.
Yeah, correct. Someone's watching you. It's probably watching you.
I would also like to add, if you have pets, pay attention to them as well, because they're really, really sensitive to different energies that are in the room that are not normal.
Yeah. So how often, if a pet is gazing off in the distance, you think it's 50-50 that they're seeing a ghost? Or
with my dog, she doesn't gaze off in the distance. She automatically goes into defensive mode and starts barking.
Oh, wow.
Just at random stuff that maybe I can't even see, but she can feel that something's there.
Yeah.
Cats are weird. I mean, they stare off into stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't have cats, so I don't know what their senses are telling them, but dogs for sure, if they're relaxed and all of a sudden jump up and start staring at something, I would pay attention to that.
Good indication.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. How important do you think it is to maybe keep a log of when things are happening, especially if, again, you suspect a haunting in your home?
I think it's super important.
Yeah.
Because then you can try to match night after night. Is it happening at the same time? And then why is this happening at the same time? Or if the faucet is turning on and it's 5 nights in a row, well, maybe there is a plumbing issue. You know, you can really narrow down some stuff by that.
Yeah.
That's what I think. What do you?
No, I agree. Nobody knows. Why is it always occurring on the new moon? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, but just to try to give some, to maybe spot some correlation that might be hard to do if you didn't have a document. I think it could be certainly helpful to do.
Yeah.
It would be helpful for us too if they ever were to call in a paranormal team,
Right.
something that we can go by as well.
Right. Absolutely. And I guess that's the natural thing to go to next is if these things keep happening, you're doing a log or you're trying to capture audio and maybe you think you have something. When are people typically calling in a ghost hunting crew like you guys? What typically is happening for you?
I think it gets to them. It is too much for them to handle, and they want somebody else that has experience in this to come in. Mainly what I find is that people are being touched. If they start getting physical, if the spirits become physical is when we're called in, or somebody with children and they don't want their children hurt. That's when we're usually called in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be a big one for me. For sure. I can imagine that makes a lot of sense because now it's become bothersome and now maybe you're a little threatened by
Right.
it.
Right.
It was annoying and now
it's really affecting them
Right.
negatively.
And they want to sleep. They, when you start losing sleep over it,
Yeah,
then
that's
it's kind
a
of
good
time,
point.
like
Yeah.
because their mind's instantly going to go to it's evil, and but it might not be. It most likely isn't going to be, but that's when it is a good time at that point.
Yeah.
Most of our findings, when we have another medium on the team, Mary, when we do our walkthroughs, we usually find that it's actually family that's checking up on the people. And they're not meaning to scare you or hurt you, but they are trying to let you know that they're there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it possible, like, for them to only interact with you like one time ever? Or do they usually come back like multiple times?
When we get a case like the one we had last time, I had a visitor probably a week before. We even went and investigated. So they like to visit both of us.
Okay.
Sometimes weeks before we even go. And I'm like, where did you even come from? Because I try to keep my house, pretty spirit free, but they follow me anyway. But when I get new ones in, either I know I'm going to get a call for somebody that needs help or
Interesting.
that we already booked something.
Interesting. So what do you think is happening there where this is
I think they talk on the other side.
Yeah.
They can see everything we do. If it's in your home, they know who you're talking to and they can read, so they're like, oh, it's Marcia. Well, let's go see her.
So they're seeing your internet search maybe over your phone. And then they're like, oh, they're searching for Marcia. I'm going to go find her.
Yeah. And we have evidence of them talking about both of us, like me and Paul. We have our names and stuff all the time on the recorders. And they're like,
well, just this last investigation that we did, I was going through our audio and I came across something that said Marcia has been painting, and was after the question was asked, have you visited any of us this week prior to us coming here? And so I texted Marcia, it's going to sound weird, but have you been painting?
and I was like, yeah, actually I was painting.
She
Why?
texted me back a painting that she was working on. So we do get confirmation, like that. It's I don't know why I'm blown away every time, even though I expected her to say yeah. But when she texted me a picture of something she was painting, I'm like,
yeah,
there you go. You know?
And a lot of this, when you guys are doing the techniques, I wonder if you can kind of like back up a second and think through like when you're there, what are you typically doing? We talked about sound recorders. There's things called spirit boxes. I mean, what are you typically laying out and how are you going about like capturing the evidence and guiding maybe the homeowner or business owner, if that's the case, what the process is like
I will say this guy's equipment that he has made for us has helped us out tremendously. Being able to listen in live time like we do with his, we can then take that question and the answer and feed off of it and continue to go with it. When I first started, that was kind of the struggle. We didn't hear live stuff. We'd go home and do audio replay. And at that point, then we would hear what we're hearing. By that time, we're already gone from those places. And so just being able to hear it live, like you got to witness it, at the squirrel cage, just hearing it live like that really even was able to can make us go at the squirrel cage. Even though we had all that background noise going with the tours still going, it made just with his equipment, it just made that process so much easier. It made it so much better for you guys, for us, and just to keep feeding off of that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are putting out equipment and essentially asking questions and trying to kind of poke around and understand who might be there, why they're there, those kind of things.
Right. And like what Marcia said earlier about family, I mean, even through, there's no name of, we just call it the box, right?
The box.
But we will get confirmation, we will get names, and it's in family members generally. And so that's kind of nice when we're doing an investigation. It's kind of nice for the family to hear that in real time. And it can be quite emotional at times for folks. But I think it's comforting for them. So it's great to come back after a couple of weeks, previously where we would just lay out recorders and we wouldn't know what we got till later. But it's kind of, it's great in real time to be able to do that. Well, another thing we also like to do is do a little investigating and then kind of evacuate the premises, but leave what we call super ears in the premises. And you'd be amazed at the kinds of stuff that we hear in an empty place when we're outside. So that can also add some data and some evidence of us trying to uncover what the heck's going on in a place.
Essentially, your super ears is like a very sensitive recorder that you can listen to live.
Right.
And you've already been poking around, you've been like calling out and trying to get a response, and maybe the spirit or the haunting is a little shy. And
correct.
And this is another kind of method that you use to see if, like, okay, now that we've kind of shook things up a little bit, is this out there? And if we're gone, maybe we might hear something at that point.
Yep. And sometimes we get the most activity of just trying to interact with them. And at other times, just like you said, they may be shy, I don't know. Other times, some of our best stuff is when we're out listening into an empty location. But with that piece of equipment, which is super, super sensitive, you'd be amazed at some of the things that we hear. Voices.
Yeah.
Them talking to each other.
Them talking to each other.
Yeah.
Many times about us. What the heck's going on?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
And they know that we call Paul's equipment, one of the equipments, the box, because that's how they refer to it.
Yeah. They'll talk about the box. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, natural place to ask about maybe some of your most memorable audio captures that you've had. I got to listen to a few, and I hairs on your on your arms and neck and everything go like straight up. Who wants to start it with some of their experiences?
Let's start with Chris.
Yeah. So I had one that it was actually it was my first time ever at the Villiscax murder house. And it means just brutal what happened there with the murders. And we were doing audio and we didn't hear it live at that time. It was just a recorder. And we got home and we heard what is the mom screaming. And that I think has always stuck with me. That's a piece of evidence that I will always keep. Just to hear the scream of the mom, it can go two ways. We don't know if she's screaming to basically get out of here, or was it reliving that moment? And that's what's the hard thing, is if she was reliving that moment, just to hear the scream and the brutality of what happened, The mother was the only one that got the sharp end of the axe to her face. All the rest were the blunt end, all the kids, the dad, all that. So just the emotions that go through you hearing that audio is it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and connecting that to the history of the home
Yeah.
and what happened. I mean, that helps really paint a picture for
Yeah.
what you're experiencing.
And that's in 1912 when that happened. July 16th? I think?
June 10th.
June 10th. There you go. 1912. And so, that took in 1912. The Titanic was the biggest thing that happened. Those murders in Iowa took the Titanic off the front page, because it just wasn't heard of, and it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And typically things like that, the energy that is staying there. Can you explain why something like that helps, like that energy just remain and you're able to experience it 100 years later?
Yeah, that's a you, Marcia.
I think because it's such a traumatic event that the energy is just holds there. It doesn't. Sometimes they don't realize what's happening, that they're dead, and they just stay there. It's very common with anything that's traumatic or a sudden death for it just to hang around.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of movies about like unresolved business and things like that. Yeah, how true is something like that maybe for an energy or a spirit to stick around?
I don't think I really ran into a spirit that had unresolved business. The ones that I find that what I call crossover is either because they're lost or afraid. We had a suicide one that was afraid to go over into the light because he thought he would be judged. But I don't know about the unresolved business stuff. I haven't ran into anything like that, and I've been able to see ghosts since I was 8. So
Yeah, they're not sticking around from your experience.
No.
Because they
and they do, but the ones that do cross over, they do cross back over to visit. And the way I can tell the difference of them is the ones that haven't crossed over look like their death state. And the ones that do cross over have like this gold glitter light thing around them, and they look normal.
Okay, well, hard to move on from that. You just hear these things and you're just like, wow, it's incredible that there are people out there that have those experiences,
Yes.
like, and physically see it. I mean, the rest of us are just like trying to find little glimmers of this through sound and audio and things like
Mhm.
that. So it's certainly takes one aback to hear like the physical apparitions that you're able to kind of capture that way. It's impressive. Anybody else want to share an experience, the most memorable experience that you've had?
Well, for me, and I'll
investigating?
just give it a quick start, and I'm sure Marcia will chime in, but we had a private residence where one of the issues was there was a little girl that lived with a young
That's the one I was going to say too.
a little girl that lived with a young couple, and she had an imaginary friend like many little kids do, right? Except when the little girl would play in her room, mom and dad would hear two voices, and there were other things going on, quintessential cabinets opening and closing, loud banging, that kind of thing.
The daughter's bedroom door would open and shut all the
Daughters,
time.
yeah. We were able to hear in real time a little girl conversing with us.
Conversing with you.
Conversing with you.
Let's get it right, Paul.
Well, intelligently conversing, as if there was another little girl right there in the house. And some of the things we heard in real time, I mean, to me, it was mind-blowing. I walked around for several weeks after that, just absolutely blown away.
It was trying to entice Paul to the basement. I wanted Paul to come play with her in the basement.
I wanted to go
And
play
Paul
with
was
her.
very close to going down. And I said, Paul, that's not a little girl. I said, don't go down there. And he's like, well, maybe if I just go down. I'm like, Paul, do not go down there. And then when he heard the audio later, that he was like, I'm glad I didn't go down there.
Yeah.
Well, one of the audios, I mean, the giggles that we got were
The
like
giggles.
quintessential horror movie type giggles.
Wow.
It's just clear as day.
It was just creepy all the way
Oh, my
around because
gosh.
it was like, come play with me.
And she goes, she goes,
I said-
I'm here, just clear as day. And one of the things that she said when I was like trying to, this was coming from the basement, I was I was conversing with her. She said, if you don't come down and play with me, then we will kill you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah,
get my
clear as day.
doll. Remember
Clear
that?
as day.
Yeah, clear as day. So that to me,
Good thing you didn't go to the basement.
I
Well,
told him, I said, Paul,
and
that is not a
afterwards-
little girl.
well, and afterwards I said, she said, if I don't come play with her, and I didn't go play with her. So, but I wanted to go. I felt like it was, once in a lifetime thing, but
I try to keep my team safe.
Yeah.
I learned to
She-
listen to her.
yeah,
It's
she-
just my
Listen to her,
main
yeah.
thing when I investigate.
yeah,
I will protect them all,
Mhm.
but I won't protect myself because I'd rather be the one that gets scratched or hit
Yeah.
or anything than have my teammates go through that.
yeah, no, and I appreciate her, and I'm glad I listened to her. So, but it took some coaxing. So,
I had to threaten him myself. And I was like,
yeah. So that I felt threatened by.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, this has been super, super creepy. I wonder if we can kind of wrap up with some suggestions or things that you typically do to help a homeowner kind of either live with the spirit that's in their home, or maybe to help this person cross over, and how you guys typically approach that.
I usually, when we're done investigating, I usually will do a cleansing and a blessing on the house. I'll go through the whole house and sage it and stuff like that. When I try to help somebody cross over, I usually use spirit guides to help me because it's easier for them to take them by the hand and lead them to the light. But the main thing I tell my clients is try not to interact with them. Don't give them an opportunity to come back and build that energy up so they can start messing with you again. So just leave it alone.
Let's try to let it be.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is something after the cleansing and
Right,
after those
yes.
those
And they
things
usually go
help
away
kind
after
of
that.
make it
Mhm.
go away. They're just kind of, if you're being agitated by it, maybe that's helping to kind of feed into the energy.
Exactly. So like you can talk things into manifestation. The more you talk about it, the more interested they're going to become and try to interact with you.
Yeah.
And then you're going to start it all over again.
Yeah. Interesting. Any other final thoughts on how to help these people cross over or live with the haunting that they may be experiencing?
I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, seriously, I think there's been times when we have been able to present evidence that it's past loved ones that has been comforting to some people, and then they calm down, and I think then
they're okay to live with it then if they know it's family.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Some understanding of what's there
mhm.
kind of helps a little bit as
Right.
well.
Depending upon what it is, but like I said, if it's past family members,
Mhm.
I think many clients have been comforted by that.
And the one with the little girl in the basement.
Oh,
we
I cleansed that house and it was
Yeah.
quiet for maybe 15 minutes. And as we were walking out the door,
Oh,
there
man.
was just
Yeah.
crazy banging happening
Oh,
in the
I-
basement all over again. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, good luck with that.
Sometimes you have to
Move out.
move. Sometimes.
They ended up moving. Like it was
Yeah.
like 6 months after that.
Yeah, in our expert opinion, it's move.
Yeah.
And again, above all, you yourself are probably the most powerful person in your house. Tell them to leave. It's your house.
Mhm.
Be polite. Don't be rude. Don't be mean.
But be firm.
But be firm. Absolutely. It's your house. So
And a lot of times they respect that from your
Mhm.
for the
experiences.
most part,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think we learned a lot. We could have gone on for, I think, another hour here just by talking and poking your brains a little bit. I'm sorry that we don't have more time because honestly, I would love to, but we got to wrap things up. Chris, Marcia, Paul, Doreen, you were all fabulously otherworldly. So thanks for being here. I also want to thank my co-host Becca and our co-producers Scott and Ann. And finally, I want to thank you listeners for liking and subscribing wherever you listen. And don't forget to visit nfm.com/podcast to send us your questions from design challenges to product recommendations and beyond. Ghost beyond. We're giving free advice on all those sorts of things. Bye for now. But remember, home is what you make it.
Thanks for joining us today for I Am Home with Tyler Weisskopf, Hillary Waltemath, and Becca Sudbeck. No one knows home quite like NFM. So if you'd like more information on home design at NFM, please check out nfm.com and leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice.